So, I've been thinking. I started playing this game a couple years ago now. At this point, with thousands of hours, not as long as many and more than some, after 5 wipes, a roller coaster of changes, community outrage and disappointment, support and camaraderie, I've spent more time playing and thinking about it than most, if not any other media that I've ever consumed. And I've come to an interesting conclusion about this game. Escape from Tarkov is not fun. Nikita Boyanov, the COO of Battlestate Games, has in multiple recent interviews shared his awareness that EFT is not a fun game. This was specifically in reference to the currently in beta spin-off Arena, which was, according to BSG, intended to be fun. This, as expected, garnered anywhere from cheeky elbow jab responses, haha, even Nikita knows his game isn't fun, to comments about how this was proof that Nikita, and by proxy the team behind EFT, were at best incompetent in their development of Escape from Tarkov, and at worst, actually giving up on the title as a lost, broken train wreck and switching their attention to a simpler, more enjoyable side project. Regardless of these potential opinionated takeaways, the question arose in my head, is Escape from Tarkov fun? In my opinion, no. No, it is not. And I actually think that that is a good thing. And in fact, part of what makes the game so special, what's led to it having such a lasting impression on the industry. As Escape from Tarkov moves close to its 7th year in early access beta state, many changes are coming soon which will fundamentally change the way that it's played, for the upteenth time. And I think that now, more than ever, there's an interesting and important conversation to be had here around the difference between a game being fun and a game being rewarding. Much of the discussion around this or that development or balancing decision in EFT for the last many years has revolved around if a feature makes the game more or less fun. Many argue that when design decisions push the game into the realm of the hardcore or the dreaded, quote, realistic, that any sense of fun is killed. And I, in a way, agree, and I in fact believe that this is all intentional. Nikita was quoted years ago in saying that he wanted to make a game so unbelievably difficult that very few people would actually want to play it. But for those that did, he wanted to curate an experience which simulated the great catharsis achieved from overcoming an overbearing challenge. To a degree, the very basic concept that the greater the struggle, the more glorious the triumph. While this is a vast oversimplification of the game's mechanics, I do think that that is a core element of what EFT is all about. That deep, intense, personal feeling of reward. For anyone who has played competitive online games, there are probably matches that you remember and matches that you don't. For those that you do remember, try to recall what it was that set that moment apart. Was it a satisfying clutch where you were the last one alive in a team-based shooter, or winning a tiebreaker at the very last second in a sports game with a Hail Mary pass? Essentially, there's a good likelihood that the most memorable moments in competitive gaming are those in which you as the player faced, and either through luck, skill, or a combination of both, overcame odds stacked against you. It's that moment where you sit back in your chair with a deep breath of, yeah, I really just did that. I really just pulled that off. If the odds were stacked on your side, or even just evenly, and things went about according to plan, there's a good chance that you don't remember that match quite as well, right? Many video games, especially first-person shooters of the last couple of decades, have been developed under the pretense that moment-to-moment gameplay should be, to a basic degree, satisfying, engaging, and yeah, most simply, fun. This can be achieved in a number of ways, such as curated AI design, which challenges the player just enough to give them a sense of achievement at beating a section, while avoiding design decisions which make the player feel unfairly matched. It can also be achieved through molding the game world around the player, giving them a title role in a Hollywood adventure story. In many cases, it can be by rewarding the player to different degrees for their successes in-game, from big to small. Everything from the design of a hit marker, to the user interface congratulating the player for their triumphs. Game designers go to great lengths to assure that the very experience of playing their game gives the audience a sense of immediate satisfaction or fun, something to make them keep hitting that start match button to keep having fun. I believe that Escape from Tarkov abandoned the idea of second-to-second fun in order to attempt a competitive experience where as many moments as possible feel stacked against the player, while assisting that player in finding ways to build their own win conditions and to seek triumph in a way that feels deeply personal. While I feel that the comparison of referring to Tarkov as the Dark Souls of multiplayer shooters has been echoed without much thought for years, I do think that the core mechanical idea of the Souls franchise of making a game entirely out of boss encounters bears resemblance to Tarkov's design of a raid. Every one of them will be a challenge, but some will feel truly borderline impossible. The difference is that in Tarkov, there is no specific win condition, no guaranteed goal one is intended to surpass, no foe vanquished or victory screen. There's just this. In Tarkov, at some point, you will be killed. If you don't die, you've essentially won, meaning that anything on top of that success only compounds the experience of reward. If you want to play Tarkov by simply loading into a raid with as little gear as possible, looting one container, killing one AI enemy, and extracting, technically you've won. But it's the doubling, tripling, quadrupling of those stakes. The fact that through time and experience the player can consistently raise the bar for themselves, setting their sights higher and higher, and thus personally creating a more potentially rewarding experience. This is how Tarkov created a space for itself within a subgenre of shooters no one had even considered before. There is essentially no limit to the degree to which this can be done, making Escape from Tarkov potentially one of the most rewarding games you could possibly ever play. To make an analogy, bouncing on a trampoline is fun. It'll definitely make you smile, but I would hesitate to say that many would argue that bouncing on a trampoline on its own is on a surface level a deeply rewarding experience, something that one feels to their soul that they will remember for weeks or even years to come. In contrast, anyone who has ever written a dissertation or perhaps studied for an intensely difficult test, staying up all night poring over details, highlighting, cross-referencing, or say on the flip side something physical, like anyone who's ever had a goal to run a marathon or hit a certain personal record while weight training. The period spent working towards that goal may have been painful, grating, maybe even altogether completely unenjoyable. There may have been moments where you wanted to quit, where you were filled with self-doubt, where you were simply just done with it all, and no longer cared if you succeeded or failed. But if you saw through that moment, if you carried on, became one with that struggle, the moment where it passed can, and has been, at least for me, an almost life-defining moment of catharsis. Okay, am I getting a little high-minded with this analogy? Maybe, so let's walk it back a bit. That Escape from Tarkov is a game at the end of the day. Something we associate with the word play is a fact, and one that is impossible to get away from when discussing interactive entertainment. But I do believe that this feeling of overcoming struggle and the deep sense of reward felt from doing so is embedded in every aspect of Tarkov's design. And I believe that this works partially because of the degree to which Tarkov embeds the player within itself. We often use the word realistic, but I think that immersion is often a more apt term. And immersing the player through the use of sound, visual design, depth of character, lore, and story all assist in selling the world of Tarkov as a living place, but more importantly, embedding the player within this world tells us that we are participants in it, in the very way that we are participants in the world outside our computers. It tells us that what we do here has consequences. The places we go and the people we interact with are real. That guy who killed you is a real person who bested you in combat, and if you work hard, if you train and practice and fail enough times, maybe next time you'll be the one besting them. This interest in reward and catharsis is inherently a wall between Escape from Tarkov and a large number of gamers out there. There's a good reason why so many choose to watch others play the game rather than play it themselves. There is, of course, nothing wrong with wanting a little fun out of a video game, of avoiding pain and struggle completely. It's that escape from the struggle of reality that makes so many people turn to video games in the first place. But that is exactly what I think sets Tarkov apart and what made it such an enticing and different piece of media when it was first released. Tarkov is actually escapist entertainment in a way, perhaps some of the most effective ever created. It sets in front of you a world where you are at a disadvantage, where you begin powerless. It bypasses that surface level interest in immediate satisfaction, that simple dopamine hit which permeates so much of modern culture. It says, no, if you want success, you will work for it. You will struggle, you will lose, and you will learn how to overcome your own fears of this failure. One day, you will come out on top because you make the rules about what that means. You set the stage for what you risk and how much you can potentially gain. You can get back at those who've wronged you. You can inflict on others the pain that has been inflicted onto you. And when you do, that's a sense of reward that you will not soon forget. This all sounds a little bit masochistic. At the end of the day, it is pretty much harmless because it is just a computer game. And at the end of the day, it's all just a bit of fun, isn't it? If you found this kind of discussion interesting, you might like my streams. Going on gaming-related rambling tangents is essentially the entire reason that I make content in the first place, so if you're like-minded, come hang out with us. There's also a Discord with close to 3,000 people in it where you can chat, play games with others, discuss deep lore theory, or just share pictures of your pets or dinner or whatever. I'm out here to create a welcoming, friendly, and relaxed space on the internet, and I'd love for you to be a part of it if you'd like. I'll be making much more content like this, as well as deep dives into gaming lore, like the insanely detailed background world of Tarkov, as well as breaking down my thoughts about games upcoming in the future that I find interesting, such as Gray Zone Warfare, Beautiful Light, and Marathon. Sharing this video with anyone that you think might find it interesting is a great way to support me right now, and if you aren't subscribed, doing so will just mean that you'll be here for when I drop my next piece of yapping content. Until then, cheers, and I'll catch you soon.